Dlatego! Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ferret 64 with me, your host, Yemmy the Ferrets. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everyone is doing fantastic today, or this week, or this weekend. It's been a decent week, I would say. I do apologize about last week's episode. I did an oopsie, and I had to live with that oopsie. So this week I have made sure that I am not muted. Also, I'm not dead tired, so that's a plus. So this week should go a bit smoother. But of course, I do apologize about that last episode. A bit fast on those topics and such. But if you like that style of just kind of zooming through everything, I don't know, let me know. I'm always looking to improve the show, and if that's something that I can do to improve it by just talking about things faster, let me know. But without further ado, we will dive into this week's episode. And we got a fairly beefy one today, I would say. And we're going to, of course, start with the what I've been playing this past week. All right. Today, I am listening to Donkey Kong Country, Cool and Calming Music plus Rainstorm on YouTube. If you want to check that out, I figured mix things up a bit from my normal mix of video game music, but not really that much. I was thinking maybe the calming rain would help center my chi, so... Alright, anyway, let's get started with Stellar Blade, which came out on Friday, right? Yes? It came out along with Sandland, and I was thinking of getting Sandland, but the release schedule is massive this week, and I'll just wait on Sandland since I'm not like 100% sold on it, I guess you would say. I didn't play the demo, which maybe would sell it on me or not. But I watched like Angry Joe play it a little bit on Twitch, and say what you want about Angry Joe, he's actually gone a bit more in the positive direction for me. I know a lot of people say he's a shill or whatever, but I don't know. I enjoy what he does. Anyway, so yeah, Stellar Blade came out, and I haven't played like a ton of it, so this truly is like a first impressions thing right now. But essentially, Stellar Blade is exactly what you kind of expect it to be. It's a hack and slash, highly detailed environments. It's got some collectibles to find in there. Of course, you got all these like different moves for your character, including like a parry move, a dodge, some special moves as well mixed in there. And there's also like a backstab that you have to unlock, which is kind of finicky. But in the end, it does play a lot like, and it plays. I'm trying to think, because it's not really like a Devil May Cry style of combat. Like, it has the hack and slash elements, but you don't have the guns and like Bayonetta or DMC. So it's like it's not like super Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, but it does have some inspirations from those games. Honestly, I probably would say that it's more like... I don't even know. It's more like the combat style of like the Final Fantasy Rebirth and Remake, I think. And that does track because the graphic style is also very similar to both of those games as well, where it's a very highly detailed environment and the characters are maybe a bit more unnatural looking in a few ways. Although the main character for this one, Eve, is pretty human-like, I guess you could say, compared to some of the characters from Final Fantasy, of course. But like the exaggerated eyes and the exaggerated butt and boobs, obviously there are people with these kinds of builds out there, but it's all very exaggerated. The jiggle physics are at an all-time high for this game. So if you're someone who is just looking for a game to play and I guess admire the scenery, this is definitely a game for you. Personally, like, yeah, I mean that stuff's fine. Like, it is a bit distracting at times, especially when like you're going up a ladder and the view is literally like up, up the ass of the character, or like a cutscene plays and like the exaggerated boob physics are going off like crazy. It's just a bit distracting, and it's not like in a like distracting in like a good way. It's distracting in like a way that's like, oh wow. um, so yeah. So if you want to if you want to buy the game and not look sus while buying it, talk about the gameplay elements itself instead of the characters themselves. That'll give you a green check mark to walk out of the store you bought the game from without them thinking that you're going home to jerk off, right? But the thing about this game is that it actually does a pretty decent job with the mechanics, like the action mechanics. Like, even though it's not like as crazy as I was thinking it was going to be, and then again, I could just not be far enough in the game. Maybe I don't have some of the stuff that would be required for like a more intense action-packed DMC type style game. Because it does, like I said, it does feel a lot like the combat style of the Final Fantasy like Rebirth or Remake, whichever one. I maybe more like Rebirth, honestly, where it's like it's very like you don't have like a lot of like regular moves, but you have a lot of special moves that you can use. So your regular hack and slash is your normal attacks, and you have like a heavy attack. Of course, I already said you have your parry, which is the timing's a little bit awkward, but once you get used to it, it's okay. It's not my favorite parry in any game ever, but it is very much like a Sekiro, where you're trying to, when you do parry, where you're trying to get the enemy off balance so that you can do like a big hit on them or whatever. So it shares a couple of elements from a few different games, but it does end up being its own unique experience, just simply because of the location that you're in, the story that's going on, the characters that you're playing as, etc. And you also have the dodge move, which can be done perfectly in order to slow down time, and that also will put the enemy off balance as well, which is interesting, I would say. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't play too much of it right now. It's just kind of getting used to the game itself, because there's a lot of weird things that happen. Like, there's a collectible in the game that's like soda pop cans, and when you pick them up, Eve is like really like excited about it, and she goes, "Wow, look at this!" And it's like, okay, it's a soda can, but it's just it's kind of like a funny kind of thing going on. It also has that same problem that I had with Final Fantasy Remake, which was like super serious like tone in the game, but then all of a sudden, Cloud is doing like a million sit-ups or whatever, or like there's that section where you're dancing in the parlor, they not the parlor, in the bar or whatever it is. And this game kind of has that same thing where it's like it's a super serious tone, and like Eve is this character who doesn't really, all she knows is like the army or whatever, the Air Force that she's in, and whatever, and learning about the old world, and it's very interesting, it's very serious, and then all of a sudden she does this thing where it's like soda, or like you go to like a camp and you have like this serious conversation with the guy controlling the drone that follows you around, and like around you there's like in the middle there's like a stew being cooked, and it's like one of those comically like made stews, or like there's a vending machine that houses the health and grenades and stuff for you, and you can have her in these like unique outfits where it's like like it's just one of those games that's like, okay, it kind of clashes with itself because there's so many different elements going on, which is not entirely a bad thing. It's just you got to get used to that sort of thing, which it did take me a while to get used to it in remake, and I don't think I ever really got used to it in remake, especially towards the end when I was getting too frustrated with the game to care. But that's another story for a different time. So yeah, Stellar Blade, it's got like a really nice graphic style. The soundtrack is pretty bopping right now, and the hack and slash mechanics are good. I've gotten past a couple of bosses, and they've ranged from decent to good. The latest one I fought was like the Corruptor or something like that, and I just wasn't like, I don't know if I just wasn't getting his moveset, but every time it would attack me, I could not time my parries properly, which ended up getting me killed one time. But I wouldn't say that the game is like super, like it's not super difficult. I wouldn't say that's actually really that difficult at all, to be all in all honesty. Like, the highest difficulty level you can choose on your first playthrough is normal. And there's also a story mode as well along with the game. And having to play a normal, that's what I would have played on anyway, because I am a big proponent of normal or regular or whatever is in the middle is what the developers intend you to play the game on. So I would have done it anyway, but it just there's not enough challenge right now to the game to really keep me going, like, not keep me going in a way that's like, oh, I'm gonna stop playing, but keep me invigorated with the game. It's a lot of like, yeah, it's just not a lot of challenge in there right now, and maybe that'll change as I get farther into the game. Of course, I can't really say right now because I haven't played that far, but that is the main thing right now. It's like I'm just kind of cruising through the game a bit. The only times I've died is just from fall damage, because I'm not used to how short of a fall that Eve can take. Like, sure, there's some times where I was, just kind of not paying attention, I fall off of something, but there's a couple times where it's like, oh, I can get down to that level, and she'll die because, oh, I guess I can't get down to that level. So, yeah, that's Stellar Blade so far. Yeah, I'll definitely be playing more of it this week. And the last time that I was playing, I did get I did get a bit frustrated with the checkpoint system and stuff like that, because it's got like the little camps that are kind of like the bonfires in Souls games where you respawn at them and enemies respawn. Of course, it's not like a Souls like game whatsoever, but they use that mechanics. And I almost would have rather have had a checkpoint system where it's like, okay, you died from this enemy, like, after traveling so far away from your camp, okay, we're just gonna start you right there. But no, it's a decision that I'm not like entirely crazy about, but I'll live with it. And the game is fun. Like, it's not like I'm bored out of my mind while playing it. I've wanted to play some other games, try and get some other games finished right now, which is tough because there's so much coming out, and I'm still working on so many games, and I've had to put a few of them on the back burner recently, just because it's just one of those things. It's like I'm stuffed. I'm overclocked with games right now, and it's getting a bit overbearing at times. Looking at my games that I'm like playing and working on, and being like, well, I can only play one game for like an hour or so today. So might as well play this or try and get more done in this. And weekends are nice usually because I don't have a lot going on other than like streaming. Of course, things have changed recently, so it's not like I'm completely free on weekends anymore, but usually Sunday is the day where I can just like chill, sit back and play a couple video games. And even then, like, some days you'll just be like, well, I don't want to play a game right now. And you just will I'll just watch YouTube all day or something like that. Or some days I'll get stuck on playing one single game, and yeah, sure, I'll make a lot of progress in that game, but the other games that are maybe more important, quote unquote, which are games that are newer, or I need to get some more work done on them so I can have more opinions on them. Sometimes those games get put on the back burner because I'm enjoying a different game more, which this week has been I've gotten back into Banishers, which I didn't get out of it per se, but I did take a little bit of a break because things were coming out, like I said. But I did get back on it, and I intend on finishing it this coming week. So next week I should have a nice, beefy thing to talk about for Banishers. But anyway, that's Stellar Blade. I just didn't talk about it for about 5 minutes there. Um, if you like a good hack and slash, it's a good hack and slash. If you're looking for a totally new concept, totally new whatever, this is not going to be the totally new game that is going to blow your mind away, right? But it is good, and I am enjoying it. So, if you want to check it out, it's on PS5 right now. They did a great job with it, and I'm sure that it'll be peeking around during some of the some of the conversations around what's going to be game of the year. I mean, for me personally, right now it doesn't feel like it, but I'll of course I don't want to I don't I'll talk about it more once I play more. That's it. Another game that I've been playing this past week is Another Crab's Treasure. Another Crab's Treasure came out. I feel like it came out Thursday, so it was right Thursday or Wednesday, whichever day it came out. It came out on one of those days, and this is a game that I've been excited to play fully for a while now. It's a obviously it's like a Souls-like game where it's a bit more cutesy than most Souls-like games you play. You're underwater, so the physics are a bit weirder than you might normally, be playing with, and the combat is kind of Sekiro inspired, maybe even possibly Lies of P in some ways. But for the most part, it's got like a it's got a pretty unique combat style to it, with the umami techniques. Which so if you don't know, the base game is all about you're a crab and you're going through and you're trying to get back your home back, essentially your shell back. So you're going through all these areas, tracking down the guy who took your shell, and on the way there, you can pick up random objects, and they become your shell. So like a soda can, or a bottle cap, or a tin can, or there's like party crackers and sauce toppers and stuff like that. So there's a whole slew of things. There's so many things that you can put on your back. I haven't even scratched the surface of the shells that you can get, even though I've been playing for a couple of hours now. I've gotten decently far through the game. So each and every one of those, once you unlock it, has an ability to them, and some of them are this relatively the same, and other ones are drastically different. So to start it off, you get like this tin can that can be electrified, and if an enemy hits you while the tin can is electrified, then they get damage done to them. The soda cans have been my favorite to use because you essentially you use the umami, and it puts a bunch of bubbles around you, and those bubbles track the nearest enemy, and they give them a little bit of chip damage, but they also give them posture damage, which is a big thing in the game as well. So essentially, when I'm going up against a boss, I like to use, at least so far, I like to use the soda can to try and whittle away their stamina bar, their posture bar, whatever it's called, and then do like a big hit, which will stun them for a couple seconds, which allows you to get another big hit in. So it's kind of like Lies of P in that way, where it's like once they're exhausted and the bar turns like highlighted yellow or highlighted white, you do a heavy attack, and that puts them into the staggering state, which is just like Lies of P. Unlike Lies of P and Sekiro, there is no parrying or anything like that. It's mostly dodging or hiding inside of your shell, which is another unique aspect to the game. Kind of like hiding behind a shield in a Dark Souls game, except it's much more cutesy, where you're hiding inside this shell, and your shell has a health bar along with yourself having a health bar. So once the shell breaks, you gotta go and find a new one, or if you are ballsy enough, you can try and fight the boss or enemy without a shell on. Then the other interesting thing about the shells is you can place on these little enhancements to your character, but they only are available when you have a shell on. So you can put like a barnacle on your character, which gives you plus 10 shield or whatever. You can put like a little larva on there that gives you plus 10 health. You can put like a starfish on there, which gives you plus 10 whatever. There's a bunch of different things that help you in different ways, and of course you only have a certain number of spots you can put things in. So, making sure that you put them for your play style is important. And then there's also, oh man, there's a couple things that you can do in the game with your character. You can also visit once you get to the area. You can upgrade your your weapons and stuff like that. You can also get different costumes for your character. There's also like the bonfires themselves are like these giant shells that you go into and you can upgrade your skills and stuff like that. So, it's got all the basics of a Souls-like game while also having some unique elements like just how just how fun and cutesy the game is in general. The other thing that's kind of been bugging me is the physics for the game. So this obviously being underwater means that you have a bit more floaty of controls, a bit more floaty of actions when you're in the water, and of course you can't tell that you're underwater when you're playing. It's kind of like SpongeBob, where they're underwater, but there's no like visual representation of like, oh, they're underwater. Here's the currents. Here's the blurriness from being underwater. No, you're just underwater. You know you're underwater because if you look up, there's a sea top. The top of the sea is there, and if you jump, it's a bit more floaty, and if you try and move around, it's a bit you got a little bit of resistance on you, which is one very interesting, but two can be kind of annoying. It's one of those things that's like I get why they decided to make it a bit floaty. I keep saying the word, but yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's a bit floaty, a bit slippery, I guess you could say. I understand why they did that. But it's not my favorite thing ever in this game. And, it's funny because me and Callus kind of debate over, what games are floaty, what games are slippery, whatever, and like, Callus thinks that Donkey Kong Country is slippery. And I'm like, it's not really slippery. I don't think it's that slippery. And then I'll be playing like Mario and I'll be like, now this is slippery. And Callus will be like, oh, no, that's not really that slippery. So it's one of those things. It's just kind of funny talking about it because it's like, well, maybe something that's slippery to me will be floaty for you, or maybe something floaty for me will be slippery for you. And there's everyone kind of perceives their games a little bit differently here. And in this case, I feel like everyone is going to be remarking on how the game is very floaty and slippery at the same time. Like there's moments where you're moving around your character and you feel like you go a few extra two steps too far, and there's other times where like you go in for a swing and you feel like your swing should have hit before the enemy could hit you, but it's like, well, it's a little bit floaty there. Or you'll jump and you're practically floating down because of course it's underwater, right? So it's one of those things that's like, yeah, I get why they did it, but also it is a bit detrimental to the experience as a whole because it's just like, well, it's just kind of annoying, to have like a silly death because your character skidded across and slipped across the plane a little bit too fast, or it's a bit annoying when your attack doesn't land because you get a bit of resistance and the enemy's attack hits you, or you're trying to dodge out of the way and it's just not as clean and crisp as other games would be. And I guess that kind of leads into the other criticism that I have for the game, which has been shared by other people as well, that when you have the lock-on camera on the enemy and there's walls around you or something obstructing your view, instead of the camera kind of being trapped in front of the wall, like in most games, it gets trapped inside of the wall. So if there's like a sandcastle wall next to you and you're locked onto an enemy and you back up against that sand wall, your camera will be inside the wall instead of being kind of pinned outside of it. So obviously that is a problem that would need to have like major coding done for it, right? Having those walls be solid so that the camera can't go through it. Like they're solid so that you can't go through it, but the camera can still. And like I said, I think that would take a lot of redesign to get working, and it's possible that they just said, well, it's not that big of a deal, so we'll work on it later. It's possible they said that, but it is one of those things that I feel like a lot of people are going to have a little bit of trouble with because there are some tight corridors and tight moments for this game. Not too long ago, I was platforming across some coral reefs, and there was a single enemy on one of the skinny branches with a couple of those little coral arms coming out of it. And because the lock on camera is so finicky at times, it kept like bumping me and moving me around in like weird ways, even though the enemy was just like moving left and right because of the way that the camera was. It was just kind of like zooming around and acting all funny. And I think it's because of those coral arms being around there that affected it, which is weird because most of the time it just goes through whatever. So it was it's one of those things that's like it's kind of bringing this like fun experience down a bit because the rest of the game is absolutely great. The voice acting is fun. The parts when it's not voice acting and just like Banjo Kazooie text at the bottom of the screen is also really good too. I think it has a nice story, like a whimsical story, also laced with some more kind of villainous ties, I would say. The areas that you go to are huge. They're sprawl. Well, I guess not huge, but they're sprawling areas. And a lot of time when you go from one end to the other, there's not a lot to see and do. And sometimes you'll find like a side boss here or there. Or sometimes you'll find like an item here or there. But for the most part, it's really just like especially the first area is a bit barren in my opinion, where it's like you have some patches of like things to do, but for the most part, it's a couple enemies here and there, but not much to see. And I also got to another area where there's like a boss that spawns every time you go off the path. And that is also like another area that's very barren. There's not a lot to see, not a lot to do, but you're supposed to keep on the path or, you're going to get killed by this boss because they, obviously level them up so much over what you would be at that time. So it is one of those things that's like, well, I understand that I guess they don't want you to explore as much as I usually do in Souls-like games. A lot of times in a Souls-like game will be around like Lies of P or Elden Ring or whatever, and they want you to go off the beaten path. They want you to find like the cool things in here and there. And in Another Crab's Treasure, it doesn't seem to be what they want you to do. They seem to want you to stay on the path as much as you can, and then go back and do and find the other things if you want to. Essentially, like eventually down the road, like okay, you can come back and maybe down the road you can find something. But a lot of times, like the things you find aren't even like that like crazy either. Like that's the other thing too. It's like I haven't really found anything of super value outside of maybe a couple of those attachments to your shell that have really been that exciting. Like it's not like you find new weapons around. You only have the one weapon throughout your playthrough. It's not like you really find like new clothes around. I think you buy that stuff from a vendor in the town. Like it's just one of those things. It's like is there really a reason to explore? Like why should I platform my way jankily across bouncing sponges and past enemies who surprise attack you and stuff just to get another barnacle to put on my shell? Like it's not like that important. And it's one of those things that's like I really want to love this game, but right now I just like the game. And there is a bit of a difference there. Maybe it's not that big of a difference, but it is a difference. And maybe with an update they can improve some of the other things that I've been talking about. But as of right now, it's on Xbox Game Pass, so if you want to check it out, you can try it out for no extra cost, or you can buy it on Steam and PlayStation and other places like that if you want to, check it out fully. I've been a fan of the Aggro Crab since I started following them on Twitter. I felt like they were not just like a unique development studio, but like a very personable one. And I would like to be more positive about the game, and I am positive about the game, really. There's a couple of things that are bugging me that, bigger studios, AAA games have solved already. And unfortunately, because it's a smaller studio and, obviously they, will be improving the game as it goes on, it's just one of those things. It's like, but if they could just improve a few things here, I think that it'll be really, really great. So as of right now, it's definitely hey, try it out if you like Souls games. It's a bit weird at times, a bit janky, I guess, but not like janky in like a in like the way that Stellar Blade was. But did I even mention the jank in Stellar Blade? Rewind time, duh. Stellar Blade's platforming is weird. It feels a lot like Hi-Fi Rush when you platform. I hated the platforming in Hi-Fi Rush. It's a bit stiff when you jump, and it's also like it's unlike Uncharted and stuff like that. The climbing is also very stiff and janky as well. There you go. Fast forward. But all right, so that's another Crab's Treasure. I feel like I'm being very negative, but in general, I am enjoying the game. So it's not like I wouldn't recommend it. I'm just saying, like, if you're going into it, just know that, like, yeah, there's some things that I personally am going to criticize about the game, and it's not the end of the world to have a little bit of jank here and there, but it is one of those things. It's like you gotta just kind of be mindful of that because it could impact your playthrough of the game, or maybe how much you like the game will be impacted because of just it is a bit janky. It does do some things that I'm not a super big fan of, but in the end, it's still a fun time, and I think that as I play it, I'll probably get used to some of the slippier elements of the game, and I'm sure that they will improve the game as it goes on as well. All right, finally for the games that I've been playing this past week. I bet you didn't even know that I was playing a game right now as I'm talking to you. Yeah, that's right. I'm not playing a game per se, kind of just letting my game play, if you know what I mean. The latest game to come out from the same guy who did Haiku the Robot, which I was happy about. I was pretty positive about when I played that. The Metroidvania that came out. Man, I feel like it was like 2 years ago at this point. He put out a new game called Rusty's Retirement, which uses some of the same character designs. Actually, all the character designs from Haiku the Robot, but repackages them in a way that's a bit more whimsical. Like, hey, here's how the world would be. Here's how the world was before everything went to shit, right? So it's pretty much the enemies that you would be facing in the game are now helping on your farm, because Rusty is retired and all he wants to do is farm vegetables and crops and stuff like that, and it kind of builds and builds and builds and builds. So the main part of the game is just kind of managing your crops and unlocking new vegetables and stuff to grow. So you start off with just wheat, and once you harvest like 20 wheat or whatever, you unlock radishes, and once you harvest like 20 radishes and some more wheat, you can unlock cabbage, and it goes from there where you'll unlock more and more items to grow, and as you grow more and more items, you unlock more items to grow as well. And right now, I think I'm more than halfway through all the vegetables that you can get in the game at this point. I've been letting the game kind of run and play itself in the background for 2 days in a row pretty much at this point. And the nice thing about the game is if you're playing the game on Steam and you have another game that you want to play on Steam, Rusty's Retirement won't close if you open another game, which is like pretty cool. I like that a lot because it just allows the game to kind of be running constantly, even if I'm playing Banishers or something like that. So what is the game essentially about? It's about earning scrap, which is money in the game, and also making biofuel with the vegetables that you grow. And the biofuel can be traded for scrap, or it can be used to make new robots and or hire robots to help you on your farm. So the biofuel, you can get these worker bots who water plants for you. You can get worker bots who harvest plants for you, and then you also have worker bots that'll take the plants to the biofuel center for you. The other robots you can hire are characters from Haiku the Robot. So Haiku is actually in the game to help you water and harvest crops. Sonnet is in the game, who unlocks the decorations for your farm, which allow you to put up signs for different vegetables that you're growing in certain areas. Also some knickknacks around as well, along with plants and flowers and such, rocks, cactuses, wood, stumps and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of items that you can plant and grow as well with her. There's also Pinion, who just helps with the statistics of your farm, so it tells you exactly what's growing, exactly how well it's growing, I guess, how fast it's growing, etc. So that's nice. It helps kind of make things a bit more straightforward for you. Forbic, he collects biofuel from bulb hives, which are unlocked through him. So essentially, you can plant flowers and stuff like that, berries and stuff, and the butterflies and bees will harvest stuff for you, and that just gives you more biofuel in general. Echo is a robot to upgrade the other, like your worker bots, which is really nice. You can upgrade their capacity and their speed, which does start to help when you have multiple gardens and you'll need multiple bots because they only have a certain range to them. Another guy is called Slate, who goes around and finds fossils for you, which I believe it gives you biofuel as well when you harvest like a fossil. And then there's Splunk, who is the last one that you'll unlock because it's the most expensive. But Splunk will plant seeds on open farmland for you instead of you having to do it yourself. Which, obviously you do want to manage your own crops at times, and but a lot of times he'll grow the crops that you need, so it's not even like really that crazy. It doesn't really matter. So once you get the berry bushes and stuff unlocked, you also have a robot that will collect berries for you and bring it back to a storage unit. And then also you can get after you get one of the guys, you can unlock the farming for like cattle and stuff like that. So you can have cows and pigs on your farm as well. And what they do is you can take crops to their troughs with either yourself or with a robot, the feeder bot. They will eat the food, drink some water, and then they will crap out fertilizer, which will help your plants grow faster. And you have a fertilizer bot that'll pick up the waste for you and put it into the storage center, along with a drill bot or a fertilizer bot that will actually, in his area of coverage, go out and fertilize the plants for you as well, which is pretty cool. So with the fertilizer, you can actually sometimes grow superfoods. So I've grown a giant pumpkin, and you can also grow like a giant tomato as well, which just gives you a ton of resources. It's just a really fun thing. And then, yeah, I mean, you pretty much just let the game go. Like you can check up on it every so often, of course, or you should check up on it every so often, of course. But that's the thing, though. It's one of those games that you can kind of, like, once you really get going, like you can just kind of let it ride. And I mean, obviously, once you get that toasty person who can plant seeds for you, then you really don't have to pay attention to it. It can kind of really be in the background, but you will have to check on it every so often to unlock the new vegetables that you can, or unlock the new berry trees or whatever that you can. But eventually, like, money becomes, it doesn't even matter. Money doesn't matter, and you can just kind of start to unlock things. And of course, you can expand your farm by spending money as well, and doing all this good stuff. So it's one of those games that is it like super crazy, like super interesting. I mean, it's not gonna like blow your socks off with the with its storytelling or anything like that, but it is just a very fun, cute game that it's only like $5 on the store, and there's like a $3 like extra, I guess, DLC just to support the creator. That it's totally worth it. I think it's totally worth it to just kind of have this running on your computer, because it's just so much fun to see your farm grow and to see your little worker bots run around and do things. And like I said, like I'm literally talking to you right now, and I'm just kind of playing the game. Like, I'm not playing the game per se. I'm letting the game play, but it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, that's what you can do. You can just kind of let the game do its thing, and not you don't have to super worry about it. It's not like Steam World Build where you have to check up on your defenses or build more defenses and stuff like that. Like, your little worker bots are doing their thing, and there's no real danger involved. Which maybe some people would say, oh, that's a bit annoying, but I think that's perfect. It's a perfect little game that just kind of plays itself. And I know what people are saying, like, oh, Yemmy, you don't even like farming games. It's like, no, I don't really like farming games because of the aspect of how tedious it can become. But like a game like this where it's not really you doing the work. Like you're just kind of letting your bots do it. That's more like an RTS to me, and I like RTSs. So I'm looking at this game kind of like more like an RTS than like a farming game. So there you go. But yeah, in the end, it's very enjoyable so far, and I feel like quote unquote completion of the game would be getting not completion, but beating the game would be getting all the vegetables and all the different bushes for your characters. But it's just one of those things that I'm just kind of letting run, let it be, and I'll check up on it every so often and say, okay, yeah, it's doing good. And my Steam, my Discord is saying that I'm just constantly playing the game because when it's running, it's kind of like overrides the other things, which is kind of funny. But yeah, there you go. All right. As for older games that I've been playing, obviously I've been working on a couple things here and there. We're playing SteamWorld Heist on stream, and we just finished Assassin's Creed Rogue, which, I'll be honest, a lot shorter than I remember, but also not like as good as I remember. Like it's still kind of like not like a hidden gem, but it's like one of those games in the series that not as many people either know about or talk about because, it came out at the same time as Assassin's Creed Unity. And Unity was designed to be the next-gen experience, and Rogue was designed to be the last-gen experience still on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, And I think that's, if they had just focused on Assassin's Creed Rogue for both their next-gen and their past-gen games, I think that it would have been a fantastic experience because the story is there. The interesting story is there. The open world is good. But it could really do with the Assassin's Creed Unity like free running style where, when you can run, but then when you press X, you run up, and you press O and you run down, right? You free run down and up. It really needed that because there's so many sections where it's like the old adage of Assassin's Creed where it's like, I don't want you to run that way. I want you to run this way. Those things would have been alleviated from just having that simple system be put into place that was in the next-gen version but not in this version of the game. The combat's also a bit basic, much like Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag. It does run off of the same engine as those games. So, the combat is not like super crazy. And also it lacks some of the newer stealth mechanics from the newer Assassin's Creed games, which I'm not going to knock it for because obviously this came out long before Assassin's Creed Origins, and I think Syndicate had crouching as well put into it, but so I'm not going to knock it too hard for that, but it's still a bit awkward to, when you're trying to stealth around an area instead of crouching around, you have to like walk around or run around from bush to bush or wall to wall to hide behind things, which is, it's a bit awkward. It was a bit awkward in both Assassin's Creed 3 and in Assassin's Creed Black Flag too, so it's not like a new thing. So if you're a person who enjoys that era of Assassin's Creed where it's like, it's pretty much like Assassin's Creed 3, Liberation, Black Flag, Freedom Cry, Rogue, those games right there, they all use the same engine. So if you like Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag, you'll probably not be too not be too mad about Rogue being exactly the same in terms of physics and stuff like that because it's all using the same engine. I think maybe even Revelations uses the same engine. I'm not sure actually. Don't quote me on that. Never mind. Cross it out of your mind. So the interesting thing about Rogue is that it takes place after Black Flag, but before Assassin's Creed 3 and before Unity. And it's a nice bridge between all, those two games because in the timeline, which is a bit messed up, I'll be honest, it's very hard to totally 100% understand the entire timeline just because of how they've gone back in time now, then they've gone forward in time and all that stuff. So, it starts with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and then it gets I think the game that's last in terms of chronological order is Syndicate. Rogue sits in this interesting place because it's Black Flag and Rogue are both set before Assassin's Creed 3. Assassin's Creed 3 comes around, and then Unity. And Assassin's Creed 3 definitely happens before Unity because not only the dates line up, but also they talk about Connor at the very end of Rogue in like the little prequel to Unity, right? So that's the cool aspect of the game, is that it takes place in this interesting time period where the assassins, you kind of see the downfall of the assassins with this game, and when you go from Assassin's Creed Revelations to Assassin's Creed 3 in terms of like in-game context of like the assassins, you go from the assassins thriving in Revelations to the assassins being practically no more in Assassin's Creed 3. It's a very interesting it's a very like interesting gap, and Rogue kind of fills that gap along with, I guess, Black Flag a little bit, because it does show how the Templars are building up their forces and whatever. So Rogue comes out, and you play as Shay, who is an assassin who turns into a Templar because the assassins are trying to take these like relics that hold the world together. Essentially, Shay, he's tasked with picking up one of these relics, and what it does, it just disintegrates in its hand, and it causes the massive earthquake that happened in like Madrid or something like that back in the day. Way back in the day, by the way. And yeah, essentially from there, like the assassins are like, well, we can use this, whatever, and Shay just it doesn't agree with them, and of course playing this game shows the assassins in a different light, which is interesting too. It shows them being a bit more like, I don't know, ruthless and whatever. Because when you play as the assassins in like Assassin's Creed 3 and any of the Ezio trilogy, you feel like, yeah, they're definitely the good guys, and the Templars are definitely the bad guys. And in Rogue, it obviously needs to twist that on its head, because the Templars seem to be more sound in their reasoning as to what they're doing, whereas the assassins are a bit more chaotic, I guess. And maybe it's because they've gotten too accustomed to being on the top above the Templars, but essentially they seem to be a bit more aggressive and whatever. So it's one of those things. It's like they kind of had to change the assassins' ideology a little bit, just because it's you're playing as Shay, and they needed to make the player believe that the Templars are doing the right thing in this moment, which maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I guess that's up to you to decide. But in terms of like story, it is very good in terms of like the past story. The present story takes place after Black Flag, and if you don't know what happens in Black Flag, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but essentially Black Bart is reincarnated in the future, and he tries to take out Abstergo, and you stop him from taking out Abstergo, because the assassins still need the company to be alive in order to learn things about the assassins' history. And in Rogue, you're kind of like trying to pick up the pieces, and you're helping the present day Templars rebuild their database and go through Shay's memories and put out a call to all the people who are maybe joining the Assassin's call to arms, and be like, hey, the Assassins actually kind of messed up like 1600 years ago. Like, fuck them, right? And like the hacking mechanics are still just kind of like little mini games you play. It's not like super crazy interesting. So like the present day stuff, as usual, is like not as interesting as the stuff in the past. Of course, the ship that you pilot or you captain in Assassin's Creed Rogue, it's kind of on the same level as the Jackdaw, except the Jackdaw, you're a pirate, your crew is all pirates, you're a pirate assassin, and it feels right. In Assassin's Creed Rogue, you're more like a privateer in terms of like you're hunting down the assassin ships and like the Spaniards, I guess, and you're using like these different weapons. Like the puckle guns, I feel are better than the cannons that were on the Jackdaw, and the flaming barrels are useful, but they're not like, I'm not super crazy about them, I'll be honest. So it's just one of those things. It's like I'm a bit at odds with both. Like both the ships have their pluses and minuses, and there is like a perfect ship out there somewhere in development. But as you know, Skull and Bones came out, so we're probably not getting another Assassin's Creed like Black Flag or Rogue ever again. And Assassin's Creed 3 also had some ship stuff in there as well, so you can't count that out fully. But it's not as detailed as, of course, what you do in the two Rogue games. So I played the remastered version, quote unquote remastered. It looks better visually at points, but it really, there's still a little bit of jankiness and glitchiness to it, especially in the free running, and like the enemy AI is still very like weird. Like they'll start to see you randomly from like across the map, and then they'll like randomly start to forget about you again. It's one of those things that I don't remember having trouble with in Black Flag, but in this game it seems like something happened with the AI while they were designing either the remastered version. I don't remember it happening in the original version. I'll be honest with you, where like the enemies just have crazy good peripherals for no reason at all at random times. Um, and like the sword fighting is the same from Black Flag, so it's a bit basic where it's like you pretty much just counter and then auto kill over and over and over again. Um, so it's not like super crazy in depth like some of the newer games or even some of the older games really, but it's still fun enough, especially when you're taking over another ship. You know, you're boarding them. The reverse boarding is pretty cool, but it like rarely ever happens because like you know who's really losing when you're playing Assassin's Creed with the ships and stuff, and even and when you are like when you are about to die, the reverse boardings are pretty rare. Usually the enemy will just kind of take you out, you know. So it's kind of interesting in that aspect where it's like you have this new mechanic that's pretty cool, but it's not really utilized too much because, like, if you played Black Flag, you know how to take out ships, and you know the tactics for taking out ships, so it's not like going to be that crazy. And there's really nothing else new to the game other than the new assassin like contracts where you are on the opposite side trying to defend the guy who's going to be assassinated by the assassins. You take out the assassins before they can get to him. Of course, there's collectibles around that you can find, like the keys to unlock the Templar armor or the keys to unlock the native armor. There's the general stuff like that is all there. And of course, the Abstergo fragments are there, and the synchronization points and stuff like that. So there's a lot there, and the maps, like, I'll be honest, like the Caribbean is beautiful, and I love the areas that you go to in the Caribbean. Assassin's Creed Rogue has 3 very distinct biomes that you go into. The North Atlantic being my favorite because it's just like a bunch of ice and icebergs everywhere, and it's all snow covered. It looks very good. And then there's also like this river valley area, which is it's a lot of like wooded areas and stuff like that, almost like Assassin's Creed 3. And then there's more so like the New York, where you're in New York, and there's like a big map for you to do in New York to solve and do so. It's very much reminded me of Assassin's Creed Unity because there's so many buildings and stuff like that around. Or even like the more densely populated areas of Black Flag, really. So in the end, Rogue, it's good, but unfortunately, it just kind of loses you in a couple of key places. It gets very frustrating when the free running doesn't work, when the enemies are hyper alert, when some things just don't really work too well in the game. You have this like new rifle that's like super overpowered, but I barely feel like I need to use it because the enemies are not that interesting. Like the ship battling is good, but I feel like the Jackdaw is a little bit better than the Morrigan. The open world is great, but I feel like Black Flag's Caribbean map is so linked and natural to go through, and you need to load in each of these new maps for Assassin's Creed Rogue. It's just kind of like, okay, whatever. Also, you can't skip the credits at the end. Like, it's just kind of annoying to not be able to skip the credits. I know it's not like that big of a deal, but in the end, it's like I wish that I could just fast forward so I don't have to watch the credits for like 50 years, because there's a lot of credits on this game, surprisingly enough. So, yeah. I feel like I talked about this game more in depth and better than the new games that came out this past week. My apologies, but I'm pretty passionate about the game. Because personally, I used to, and I kind of still do, but I used to really talk the talk about Assassin's Creed Rogue. People were like, what's Assassin's Creed Rogue? And I used to really talk it up, and I think that it's still a great game to play through because it really is important in the Assassin's Creed chronological, nature of it all. But it's got a short campaign. it's got an overabundance of collectibles, much like any Ubisoft game at this point. And it's not like super interesting because if you played Black Flag, Rogue is not that different, all things considered, other than your character and ship is a little bit different. Your character is different, of course, in general, but that's that. That's Assassin's Creed Rogue. I would recommend trying it out, playing it. If you like Assassin's Creed games, play it. It's good, but it's got a lot of negatives that bad against those positives, which is why in the end I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is still average, but I wish I could rate it higher. I used to rate it higher, but on this playthrough, I definitely saw the cracks, and they formed, and they were big cracks, and I couldn't ignore them. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to what's in the news. All right, so this past week, Garry's Mod, they put out I guess a post or something on the Steam News Hub, because obviously Garry's Mod is big on Steam. It's actually only on Steam. If you don't know what Garry's Mod is, it's a big modding tool where you can load assets and do stuff inside of this like Half-Life engine, essentially. And inside of this engine, there's plenty of different IPs that works in there, like Master Chief and Kratos and Mario and stuff like that. Well, somehow, some way, Nintendo caught wind of Garry's Mod using Nintendo assets. Like, there's a whole Mario Galaxy mod that adds, like, Mario Galaxy stuff into the game. And essentially, Nintendo sent, like, a cease and desist to... It was either Steam or Garry's Mod themselves. Maybe both, actually. Maybe both. So, at the start of this all, people thought this was a big hoax. Because there has been... some fraudulent takedowns from people who aren't even associated with Nintendo out in the wild, right? But the person behind Garry's Mod, named Garry Newman, said that he has been assured that the takedowns have been verified by Nintendo and are legit. So this will now continue as planned. Sorry. So essentially what has to happen now is anything that's Nintendo related needs to be taken down from the Steam workshop. So in a post on the on Steam's hub for mods, he said, if you want to help us by deleting your Nintendo related uploads and never uploading them again, that would help us a lot, which is obviously a bit snarky, but also I mean, who would have guessed in a million years that Nintendo would take down stuff for the Garry's Mod, something that's been around since like 2006. I'm sure there's been Nintendo related stuff in the game since like 2006. So it's like, why now? Why here? Why now? And people are speculating, actually, maybe not even speculating, but just kind of like some people know that. Maybe not even know. I guess it is more speculation. I don't want to say anything confirmed or whatever. But there's essentially a company that people believe that Nintendo hired, who is based in the United States, that uses AI algorithms to tell them where Nintendo's IPs are being used. So essentially, it goes out onto the web and it searches like Nintendo related stuff like Mario and Luigi and Nintendo and Switch and whatever, and it tells the provider of this AI tool what is using the assets, and then they go to Nintendo and say, "Hey, this is a big one," or "Hey, this is one of this is one of the things you might want to take down." And like I said, that's not confirmed or anything. I'm just speculating at this point. But it does seem pretty likely, since like this has gone under the radar for quite some time, and Garry's Mod, like I said, it's been around for so long. It's hard to believe that now Nintendo is taking action, right? And if you don't recall, back on the Dreams for the PS5 and PS4, maybe it was more so PS4, right? There was Nintendo related stuff in that game, and Nintendo had PlayStation take down all the Nintendo themed stuff. So it's not like this is unheard of, but it is kind of crazy that now, after all this time, they are deciding to do this, which is kind of crazy. Blizzard has decided to not do BlizzCon this year in 2024. They They said that this is not a Microsoft decision. This is a Blizzard decision. So in a press release, they said, "This is the first time we're skipping BlizzCon or trying something new. We want to focus on highlighting individual games and their moments. Warcraft's multiple anniversaries, the upcoming release of World of Warcraft, The War Within, and Diablo 4's first expansion, Vessel of Hatred in particular. After careful consideration over the last year, we at Blizzard have made the decision not to hold BlizzCon in 2024. This decision was not made lightly, as BlizzCon remains a very special event for all of us, and we know how many of you look forward to it. While we're approaching this year differently, and as we have explored different event formats in the past, rest assured that we are just as excited as ever to bring BlizzCon back in future years." So I'm guessing they're either revamping or retooling the BlizzCon event, and it is. I mean, even though they say that's not a Microsoft decision, it's possible that because Microsoft bought them, they have to change up something about the BlizzCon or something. Something has to be changed or whatever. I know a lot of people enjoy this convention. People who are big Blizzard fans of Diablo, Overwatch, etc. Also, this year was marking like the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft, so you would expect them to do maybe something in honor of Warcraft or something like that. But it's a bit disappointing, I guess, the people who are big fans of these properties. But yeah. We'll see what happens in the future with BlizzCon. It could go the E3 route, or maybe it'll go a different route. We'll have to wait and see. Embracer Group has split up its core company into 3 separate companies. I don't think I talked about this last week, even though I kind of knew about it last week, but the full scope of it all has come out. So after laying off thousands of people from their workforce and closing multiple studios, Embracer Group has decided to split up their development groups into like 3 different groups. So there is Asmodee Group, which will be in charge of tabletop games, and then there's Coffee Stain and Friends, which will be a part of the indie and double A free-to-play games, as well as mobile games. Okay, and then the final company is Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, which will helm AAA development and publishing of games. Under the banner here is Crystal Dynamics, Dam Buster Studios, Eidos Montreal, Flying Wild Hog Studios, Tripwire Interactive, Vertigo Games, Warhorse Studios, and 4A Games, which will include IPs like Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Dead Island, Killing Floor, Kingdom Come, Deliverance, Metro, and The Lord of the Rings, of course. For Coffee Stain and Friends, there are developers like Ghost Ship, Trazier, Tuxedo Labs, and THQ Nordic, which will be in control of IPs like Deep Rock Galactic, Goat Simulator, Satisfactory, Wreckfest, Teardown, Valheim, and 200 other smaller IPs. So yeah, it's frankly a huge mess at this point. What they've been doing, they laid off all these people and they fired all these and they closed down all these studios just to split up their enterprise into 3 separate groups. Why even do that? Is it because it'll be more attractive to people who want to buy these studios? Maybe they can just buy the entire Middle Earth Enterprise and Friends or Coffee Stain and Friends, studios. It's hard to say. Each of these 3 different groups will operate by themselves, led by a board, a single board. In a press release, they said the new structure enables the best possible greenlighting models, portfolios, and go-to market strategies for indie games as well as AAA games through 2 separate, more focused entities. So there you go. Embracer Group had a downward trend for the past couple months here. They snatched up a bunch of IPs and studios and the Lord of the Rings IP in general, and they tanked at every single opportunity, closing down so many studios, so many people out of jobs, just to split everything up into 3 separate groups. 2 main video game groups, of course, and naming them something really stupid. Coffee Stain and Friends? Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends? Like, what the fuck? These are terrible names, let's be honest, but whatever. Moving on. Fortnite has officially added support for guitar controllers in its latest update. So if you don't know, the PDP Riftmaster controller is compatible with the base version of Fortnite on the PlayStation, PC, and Xbox. There are 2 different versions of the PDP controller, one for the Xbox and one for the PlayStation. If you're looking to play the game on PC, you need to have Microsoft Xbox controllers. So if you buy the Riftmaster for PS4, you can only play the Riftmaster on the PS4 as of right now. If you want to play the Riftmaster on the Xbox and PC version, well, there you go. You have a link right there, which is pretty crazy. I mean, it's not like my favorite thing ever that they did this, but I haven't bought a Riftmaster controller yet, and if I was going to buy one, I would have bought the Xbox One anyway, because I believe it works with Clone Hero, and I don't think the PS4 version would work with that. I didn't think so from the get-go. Also, apparently, some of the older controllers for consoles work as well, including the Rock Band 4 Rivals Wireless Fender Jaguar guitar, which was available for both Xbox and PS4 as well. There's also a version of the guitar, the standard version of the guitar works as well, which originally came with the original version of Rock Band 2. I'm sorry, Rock Band 4, not Rock Band 2. So if you want to use those older guitars, you have them. They do work with Fortnite Festival. And there is new pro lead and pro bass songs for the controllers as well, which actually makes them look more like a standard Guitar Hero or Rock Band, Rock Band style of play, rather than the new Fortnite Festival, which is more so like a Rock Band Blitz, if you know what that is. So pretty interesting. If you want to check that out, Wario64 put out the list of compatible controllers a while ago, probably buried in his feed by now, but that's the gist of it, though. If you have an Xbox controller, it works on PC and Xbox. If you have a PlayStation controller, it just works on PlayStation. Atari has revived a classic video game brand called Infogrames, which a lot of people mispronounce as Infogames, but it's actually Infogrames. They were a pretty big publisher and studio back in the day. They have more IPs than I can possibly start to tell you about. The list was quite extensive when I looked at it. So Atari has revived this studio. They want the studio to publish and distribute games that fall outside the core portfolio of IPs associated with the Atari brand. It'll be managing its catalog by expanding digital and physical distribution, as well as developing new collections and sequels. Game preservation is also the core component of its mission, which, I mean, thumbs up for that. The portfolio will be primarily gained through acquisitions. So games that were released back in the 80s, 90s, and zeros, the O's, they want to get the IPs back and re-release the older games that they had, and also create sequels to those games, or maybe even remakes or whatever. Right now, it's been announced that Infogrames has purchased totally reliable delivery service games, along with trademarks and underlying properties from Tiny Build. So there you go. Infogrames was big back when I was in the 90s. I started gaming, like, towards the end of it, of course. But they were pretty big during, like, the PS2 and GameCube era, so you used to see their logo a lot. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Finally, something positive in the gaming landscape. All right, Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender is joining Nickelodeon's All-Star Brawl 2 in the latest update. Zuko is here, and it's, he has 2 different costumes. So he has the earlier anime style where he had like the ponytail, and then there's also the messy hairstyle, which was later in the series run, where he, I don't want to spoil it, but so anyway, he's got a lot of Fire Nation earthbending attacks. Looks like he's going to be a pretty good character in terms of just like damage output and stuff like that. So if you want to check it out, there's a video on the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl Twitter. Or you can just wait to play it on April 24th, which he's already available now. So you can go play it right now with him in there. Other things that happened was they fixed Get Up and Place Start State for Garry, a bunch of characters. They fixed the Showdown animation problem. They fixed visualization options and training. They also retooled some characters as well. So if you want to check that out, I think that Prince Zuko is a good addition to the game, especially because they don't have a lot of Avatar characters in the game, just Korra and Aang. Aang, not Ang. Ang is the wrong way to say it. M. Night Shyamalan. But having Prince Zuko join in, pretty major character in general, good addition in my opinion. All right, Capcom is delisting Dark Void Zero, and Flock on May 8th on Steam. I don't know if this is happening on other platforms as well. Yes, they're also taking that off of the Xbox Live and I believe the PS3 store as well. Dark Void is a PS3 game that was It was a mixed bag. It's pretty cheap online if you want to buy them. It's like $10 on eBay and stuff like that. But the game is also pretty cheap on Steam and Xbox Live as well. Right now it's on sale for like $5, normally $10, right? Same thing with this Flock game. It usually sells for like $5 on Xbox Live Arcade, but it's selling for like $3 right now. Same thing with Steam. So if you do want to keep these games forever, I guess quote unquote forever, but if you want to play these games and make sure you can play them in the future, this would be the way to do it for at least Flock. And Dark Void Zero, which is like a 8-bit remake of like an original Dark Void game or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's like an 8-bit side scroller instead of being like a third-person action sci-fi game. And, Dark Void, I was, like, when I first played it on the PS3, it was even dirt cheap back when I played it, like, when I had, like, no money to spend on video games. It was, like, $5 at, like, my local, store, that, resale store. And so I picked it up and bought it, and I thought that it was actually pretty decent for what it was. But a lot of people did not like Dark Void, and there's a good video by Matt McMuscles on his YouTube channel and his series What Happened, that kind of goes into the game itself. But personally, I don't think it's underrated by any means, but I do think that if you really want to, it's not terrible. It's not a bad game. It's actually not too bad at all. So yeah, if you want to check that out, Dark Void Zero, and Flock are going to be delisted sooner rather than later. If you want to check those out at least. But like I said too, Dark Void at least is available in physical form, and it's pretty cheap in physical form if you want to check that out. And this also kind of tells me that like we're never getting a Dark Void game again, so if you've been waiting for one, Capcom is delisting them, so it probably means like, nope, we're not getting any more of those. Flock, on the other hand, it'd be nice to see like the game come back, because it was a pretty fun game where you like captured sheep and brought them back to your UFO to take back to whatever. Yeah, there you go. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the final part of the show, which is what's coming soon. All right, a new PSVR game, and VR game in general, Alien Rogue Incursion, has been confirmed to be coming out later this year on PSVR 2, MetaQuest 3, and Steam VR. There's not much really known about the game right now. We can only assume that's going to be like a VR version of possibly Alien Isolation. The logo reveal was pretty cool, I guess. That's really all they showed off. And there's a small press blurb that says, this brand new single-player action horror VR game features an original story that fully surrounds players within the terrors of the Alien universe. Designed by Alien fans for Alien fans, Survios, which I think is a development studio, brings their expertise to crafting this technologically advanced and frightfully immersive Alien virtual reality game. It's being created in the Unreal Engine 5 and in collaboration with 20th Century Games. So at least graphically, it should look pretty impressive, especially for a VR game. So if you want to check that out, the trailer is on IGN's YouTube channel. If you want to know what else Survios worked on, they worked on the Creed game, Spirit Vector, and Walking Dead Onslaught as well. So I think this has the potential to be something really cool. I guess we'll have to wait and see what more is going to be about it, but we do know that's coming to VR later this year. in holiday of 2024, and we'll have to wait and see for more gameplay or any gameplay actually. Speaking of gameplay, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remake got a nice overview trailer, about 5 minutes long. Just kind of went over how the game works. I was more so interested in how the game looks. Okay, I mean, look, I've played the Thousand Year Door game. I had a lot of fun with it. And this looks like a near perfect recreation of the game so far. And I think one of the main things that was holding back the original Thousand Year Door was that if you were going for like the 100%, the cleanup was a bit tedious because you had to walk through all these different areas. They did say in some post that there was going to be a new fast travel system, which is pretty nice. The rest of the game though was pretty much perfect minus that final boss fight. The final boss fight was a bit annoying in my opinion, especially because you had to specifically use things that I hadn't been using in the game prior. So, I got a bit annoyed, but I think now that I know what you need to do with the boss fight, I think I'll have a much better time when I play this game again. So, yeah, I mean, this overview, it's on Nintendo of America's YouTube channel. It pretty much just goes over everything you need to know. But the main thing, like I said, that I wanted to mention was the graphics look out of this world. Sure, it's locked in at 30 frames per second, but I don't think it really honestly matters in my opinion. But there's so much love put into this game originally, and just seeing it in like the new graphic style and such, I think it's really nice to see. So if you want to check this out, Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door remake comes out the 23rd of May still, and I think it's definitely going to be worth it, especially if you're a longtime fan or maybe even a new fan to the series. It's definitely Paper Mario at its best, even though I've really only played like two games. I know about most of them. It's the Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door was leagues better than Origami King. So if you came into the game late, I think that everyone and their mother knows that Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door is one of the best, if not the best, Paper Mario game out there. So check that out if you want to. The trailer looks great. A new Lord of the Rings game was officially announced. I know that I think I had like a semi announcement a few weeks ago, but Tales of the Shire is the next Lord of the Rings game to come out. This one puts you in the hairy feet of a hobbit, and you essentially it's pretty much a farming Animal Crossing type game where you build up this little village and you fish and you decorate and you explore and you welcome new people to your town, I guess. And look, this is it's fine. I enjoy. I think the concept's good. I mean, there's so many people who love hobbit holes. I mean, there's a whole like hotel I think based around hobbit holes and wherever. But can I just fucking chop off an orc's head with my sword, please? Like, I know that Return to Moria had some combat in it, but I feel like it's been so long since we've had a Lord of the Rings game where you just fucking fight orcs with swords and bows and arrows and stuff, Even Lord of the Rings Gollum didn't have, like, any combat other than a few times where you choke a orc out, and that's not very satisfying, especially with how bad that game was. Can we just get a game where you're slicing and dicing, hacking and slashing? It doesn't have to be a sequel to Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War. It doesn't have to be a game based on the original IP, We could have a totally unique game that's a hack and slash game that, that just has you hit, it's a core thing about Lord of the Rings that everyone loves is just taking a sword and hacking at an orc, I'll even take a Third Age style game at this point, but what are you gonna do? Like I said, this is fine. I'm not like pissed off that they're releasing a game like this. I'm just, I think there's a large group of people who like the Lord of the Rings. They're just like, so when can we get back to killing orcs? The thing that the movies are not all about, but the thing that in the movies that is the coolest. It's those big battle scenes, Helm's Deep and the Pelennor Fields and Minas Tirith and stuff like that. When are we gonna get back to doing stuff like that, where it's like hacking and slashing at orcs? Let's get another Lord of the Rings conquest game out there. Come on, folks, it's time. It's time. All right, Slime Rancher 2 is launching in early access on the PlayStation 5 and 4 on June 11th. It's been in early access on PC and Xbox since 2022, so the PS5 version will arrive on June 11th. It's still in the early access phase, but the game is apparently closing in on version 1.0, so we'll see when that happens. If you don't know, Slime Rancher is a sandbox game where you suck up these blob characters and you farm them, essentially. If that sounds interesting to you, there you go. Lords of the Fallen, not the Lords of the Fallen. Lords of the Fallen put out a new update, and inside this update is a new roguelite mode where you will go through a level or go through the game, essentially, and if you die, you get sent back to the start, losing all of your pickups and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting, I suppose. You can change things even further with randomized enemies, randomized loot drops from chests, fewer vestiges, the rest of that, which I guess are the bonfires, and boons like weapons and armor already upgraded to your level when you pick them up. The update also builds upon 30 previous updates and patches delivered after release, which added new quest lines, armor sets, and quality of life improvements. In a press release, they said, "We'd like to thank the many players who have embarked upon Mornstead since we launched 6 months ago. Their belief in our vision has been a real driving force for us. In response to their support for the game, we expanded the period of live support for Lords of the Fallen with an ambitious post-launch roadmap. This was built around 4 significant content updates alongside numerous smaller releases, which include tons of new content and quality of life patches." The game is currently 50% off across platforms, so if you want to check it out, I think that visually the game was pretty good. I don't remember really enjoying the combat, but I also didn't really like the combat in the original Lords of the Fallen game until I really got into it. So eventually down the road, I will be playing this, but not right now. Gory, Cuddly Carnage. I talked about this game back when I went to PAX a couple years ago at this point. I played a demo of it, and I thought it was pretty fun. This is the game where you play as the cute and cuddly Gory, who is a cat with a hoverboard, essentially, an actual hoverboard, not like the hoverboards with the wheels on the side. And you slice and dice and kill things. These cuddly creatures, like these, I guess, evil toys, like unicorns and stuff like that. Maybe they're not even toys. They because they bleed and stuff like that. So it's just like really cute and cuddly things that you're just slicing and dicing and pulling apart, essentially. And there was like a really cool system where it's like you could grind and do tricks and stuff like that. The game is officially coming out August 29th across, I believe, across systems, at least on PlayStation and PS4. I don't know about other systems right now. It's in the title, Gory. It's a gory game, but it's also a cute and cuddly game. You play as this little cat. So you have like a little interactive hoverboard. You're destroying, eviscerating cute cuddly animals. So there you go. If you want to check that out, that'll be available soon. Stalker 2 had a small teaser on its YouTube channel called the Not a Paradise trailer. Essentially what this was, it just kind of showed small glimpses of the vast open world that you'll be seeing, and it does look very impressive. I will say that the open world stuff that they showed off, I want to see more gameplay and stuff like that, like I feel like it's been a while since we saw like an actual gameplay trailer or something like that, but the game is still slated to be releasing on September 5th, still going to be a day one Xbox Game Pass release. Both PC and Xbox in console. So we will see how that is. But if you want to check it out, the Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl Not a Paradise trailer is available to see now. Like I said, it's a very short trailer, but it does show you the visual quality that you'll be seeing in vast quantities. All right, Rogue Legacy 2. It recently got an update, but it also recently is being released by Limited Run Games, a physical version of the game. Pre-orders for the standard and deluxe edition will open on the 3rd of May. The standard version of the game will release sometime in October, and the deluxe version will release sometime in December. It'll be releasing on PS5 and Switch, if you want to check that out. The deluxe edition comes with a couple of things here. It comes with a lenticular pin and a eggplant pin. Also, the original soundtrack, along with 5 art cards and a sticker sheet, and it all comes packaged inside of a VHS-style case, which is kind of cool. That'll be releasing for... Oh, how much money? Let me go to the website real quickly. My apologies, I thought that they had it on the thing. So the base game is releasing for $40. The deluxe edition is $75. And like I said, pre-orders will start on the 3rd of May if you're interested in that. Okay, a new rock climbing platformer called Surmount is coming out. Coming out on May 9th. So it uses the same kind of climbing style as Justant from last year, where you place down these little anchor points and you climb and you have stamina and stuff like that. But it's more wacky. It's kind of like What the Golf in a lot of ways from what I've seen. Where essentially it's very goofy. I believe you can play with multiple people as well. It's kind of like one of those games that's like meant to be really crazy with the physics, but also really goofy at the same time. Hopefully not frustrating, but maybe it will be frustrating. Who knows? Not only is there the climbing challenge, but there's a town that you can explore and people to talk to and upgrades and hats to get as well. So if you want to check that out, Surmount. The trailer is on Surmount's YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Distance. He's Going the Distance is an intense arcade racer that was released 10 years ago on Steam. It went through an early access period and was officially released. I played it on Steam a long time ago, and I felt like it was a really fun, fast-paced arcade racer. It's finally coming to PlayStation 4 and 5 this year. It was announced a long, long time ago, back in the PS4 era, that it was coming to PS4, but now it's officially coming to PlayStation 4 and 5. Now, the exact date is not known yet, but the trophy list has appeared online, which is a good indication that the game is coming within the next couple of weeks, because that means that people are testing the game and earning the trophies, and it's being put in, and the whole list is being put into the database. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe we'll see an official trailer or something soon, but as of right now, it's very likely that the game is coming out soon. And if you don't know what it is, it's a sci-fi racing game where you play as like this really cool-looking car through like these really crazy sci-fi Tron-inspired environments. There's an arcade mode. There's a kind of like a challenge mode, a story mode, I guess, a campaign mode, I'm sorry, and a level editor as well, if you want to check all that stuff out. That's all available on Steam right now, but it should be coming to PlayStation soon. A pretty old game is getting a remake, Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord. So if you don't know what this is, and I didn't know what it was originally, it's pretty much a text-based adventure back in the day, but now it's officially getting like a full 3D like world and character models and stuff like that. They seem to lovingly and painstakingly have recreated all the text stuff into visual form, enemy designs, levels you go through. Obviously, it's an RPG, kind of like an old school RPG. It's turn-based and in first person, which is interesting too. Kind of like the old what were they called? I can't remember the name of them right now. Kind of like the old Dark Souls, like before Dark Souls was Dark Souls and Demon Souls was Demon Souls. They released some games. I forget the name of them right now. I know what they are. But anyway, in a press release, it said beautiful new graphics and animations, user selectable options that allow players to tailor the gameplay to their liking, including popular options from console editions of the game. Players can choose no new options at all to experience the original, more challenging gameplay. There's an in-game bestiary, a lush musical soundtrack from composer Winifred, a controller-friendly interface with a one-button shortcut for fast combat choices, and it's fully localized for all these languages: English, Japanese, French, Spanish, Italian, and German. If you want to check this out, which it seems to be pretty cool, that'll be coming out May 23rd. Experience the old game in a totally new way. Speaking of old games, Nintendo has expanded its Switch Online service with 2 new N64 games. The first one being Extreme G, which is a fast-paced sci-fi motorcycle racing game. I played it back in the day. It was great. Don't know how well it held up, but I have high hopes. The other one is called Iggy's Wreckin' Balls, which I actually don't really know about. I will be honest. It looks like it's almost like Klonoa in a way, where you have like a track that you ride on. It's like 2D, but also 3D at the same time. There's also I'm not sure exactly, but seems pretty interesting. If you want to check that out, those are both available. I'm pretty sure they're available right now on the N64 expansion pack service. If you want to check that out. And finally today, PlayStation Plus Premium has added 4 new game trials where you can try out the game before buying it. That includes Exoprimal, Grease, Shadow Warrior 3, and Trek to Yami. If you want to check any of those out in the I guess trial mode, you can do that right now. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Ferret 64 podcast. I appreciate that so much. If you want to check out any of the other things I do, it's all at Yemmy the Ferret, whether it be Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, etc. I also do a podcast called Film Freaks with a Z. Last week we talked about Kung Fu Panda. This coming week we're talking about The Revenant. If you want to check out either of those episodes, the one's available now. The other one will be available next week. And there's also a new episode of Ferret Cafe out right now. If you want to check that out, they air on Thursdays. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. Have a good rest of your day. I will talk at you next week. Bye-bye.
The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by Yemmy the Ferret. The song Nightshade, used in the intro and outro, is owned by Adhesive Wombat. Small sound clips during the podcast were made by Yemmy the Ferret. News sources include NintendoLife.com, PushSquare.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions video game related are my own. Thank you for listening.